Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It's a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with the latest sports news at the Sawa. So the Ivory Coast, Senegal as well as South Africa on Tuesday completed the list of group winners in Africa qualification as well as the lineup of the 9 automatic qualifiers for next year's FIFA World Cup. So the Ivory Coast defeated Kenya by 3-0 at home in Abidjan. This to finish 1 point ahead of Gabon in Group F, while Sadio Mane's double put Senegal on course for a 4-0 victory over Mauritania in Dakar and a 2-point lead over runner-ups, the Democratic Republic of Congo in Group B. So South Africa, meanwhile, topped Group C, shrugging aside a 3-point penalty, but needing, of course, a helping hand from Nigeria to book their first World Cup appearance since hosting about 16 years ago in 2010. So Morocco as well as Tunisia, meanwhile, qualified just last month, while Egypt as well as Algeria made sure of their progress with 1 round left to complete this week, or rather last week. So Ghana as well as the Cape Verde meanwhile booked their places with home wins this past weekend. The completion of the group phase of the African qualifiers also settled the 4 best runner-ups. They include Cameroon, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Gabon as well as Nigeria, who will play next month to decide a single winner to go into an intercontinental playoff in March of next year, where there will then where there's another chance rather for an African nation to then go on to the World Cup in 2026. Well, the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, has congratulated Bafana Bafana after qualifying for the 2026 World Cup. Bafana returned to the global showpiece for the first time since 2010, securing their qualification since 2002. Hugo Bruce's men secured a 3-0 victory at Mbombela Stadium in South Africa's Mpumalanga province, while Nigeria thumped Benin, resulting in South Africa moving top of Group C, while the Super Eagles secured second place. Now, after Bafana Bafana secured their spot at the global showpiece, Infantino shared some words of appreciation. He stated on social media that Bafana Bafana were heading to the World Cup for the first time, of course, since 2010, and will play in at least 3 of the 104 matches in North America next year. Bafana Bafana, of course, returning to the World Cup for the first time since 2010, as South Africa last qualified for the global showpiece in the Korea and Japan event that was co-hosted back in 2002. Coach Hugo Bruce saying this about his team following that qualification last night.
I said already that I make on different criteria choices than you do. For me, it's important to have a player with quality, first of all, a player with the right mentality, secondly, and a player who can do what I ask him. And till now, I always succeed to do it. Even you thought that this one needed a chance. It's not like this that you build a team. It's not like this that you have performances. You need a plan, and you need to keep you on the plan, because you know that this is the right way. And this is what we did in the last 3 years.
Cristiano Ronaldo scored twice and set a new goal-scoring record, but his Portugal side could not win that game against Hungary as it was drawn 2-2 and missed a chance of qualifying for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Ronaldo has now scored 41 goals in World Cup qualifying matches to move clear of the previous record holder, former Guatemala striker, that is Carlos Ruz, who got 39 qualifying goals in his career. Now, with England beating Latvia 5-0 to qualify from Group K, Portugal were minutes away from also securing their spot at next year's tournament in Canada, Mexico, as well as the USA. So Portugal's next game is then on the 13th of November. They'll play the Republic of Ireland in Dublin with a chance of qualifying for next year's global showpiece. And finally, in a cricket news, Pakistan bowlers closed out an impressive performance earlier today, holding off the Proteas batting lineup to wrap up a 93-run victory with more than a day to spare in the first test in Lahore. Resuming their second innings on 51 for the loss of 2 wickets in the morning session on day 4, South Africa needed 226 runs to win, with Ryan Rickleton on 29 not out, and Tony Dezozzi unbeaten on 16 runs. Dezozzi, who hit a century in the Proteas' first innings, was removed with the third ball of the day when a fast bowler Shaheen Afridi had him trapped LBW without adding to his overnight score. The South Africans lost their last 4 wickets for 49 runs as they were bowled out for 183 midway through the second session. Noman led with the Pakistan bowling attack, taking 4 for 79 for a match return of 10 for 191, with Shaheen grabbing 4 for 43. Meanwhile, the second test of the 2-test series between South Africa as well as Pakistan will be played in Rawalpindi next week. Well, that concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Business news on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Thank you and good afternoon. With your business report, I am Chanduko Ligege. The UN World Food Programme has warned that almost 14 million people in Afghanistan, the DRC, Haiti, Somalia, South Sudan and Sudan risk severe hunger due to cuts in global humanitarian aid. This as the WFP's biggest donor, the US, has slashed its foreign aid under President Donald Trump, and other major nations have also made or announced cuts in development and humanitarian assistance. The agency says its funding has never been more challenged and that it expects to receive 40% less funding for 2025, resulting in a projected budget of $6.4 billion, down from $10 billion in 2024. It says the cuts to its food assistance could push 13.7 million people from crisis to emergency levels of hunger, one step away from famine in a 5-level international hunger scale. The Democratic Alliance Party in South Africa's Gauteng province is calling for the immediate dismissal of Lisiba Malotana, the province's health and wellness head of department. The party has rejected Malotana's suspension with full pay, accusing him of long-standing and links to multiple scandals, including the SIU's probe into allegations of corruption and maladministration at the country's Tembisa hospital. DA spokesperson for Health in Gauteng, Madeleine Hecklin.
You're looking at a department that underspent money meant for healthcare services to the tune of 725 million rand in the last year alone. And let's not forget the most heinous of all crimes, the assassination of Babita Deokaran, who uncovered the 2 billion rand scandal that crippled Tembisa Hospital. All of this took place under the watchful eye, in inverted commas, of Lisiba Malotana. How can one allow a man to be sitting at home on his couch with full pay when he was supposed to be overseeing a department that had these scandals?
South Africa's Police and Prisons Civil Rights Union POPCRU has raised concern over unexplained reductions in pension fund values reported by its members. POPCRU says its members have reported a drop in their pension fund balances seen on their government employees' pension fund statements for the period from July to September. The GEPF has attributed the reductions to actuarial projections, but the union argues that these should not affect existing balances. POPCRU spokesperson Richard Mamabulo.
these actuarial tools are meant for future planning, not for retrospective deductions of members' funds. And I think we've got a lot of questions that we definitely need to ask, as to who made these changes, how were these actuarial reviews were done, and of course, why Labour representatives were not consulted. One of the things that as well is concerning is the fact that the GPF had made previous assurance to workers that their patients would not be negatively affected by internal adjustments, and of course, it is clearly a breach of trust.
The Sub-Saharan Africa Initiative of German Business, SAFRI, says German economic policy is in need of a decisive Africa shift in light of geopolitical tensions and critical dependencies on raw materials. SAFRI says raw materials such as lithium, copper and cobalt are indispensable for the transformation of the economy, and that Germany must act now if it's serious about diversification, raw material security and new growth areas. The organization says Africa is not just a market for the future, but a partner for economic resilience. It called for legally binding strategic raw materials deals with African partners to reduce dependencies on individual countries. The French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has told Parliament that his government will suspend unpopular pension reforms until after the 2027 presidential election. Lecornu was setting out his budget priorities after a week that saw him resign and then reappointed. The BBC's Hugh Schofield has the details.
This key reform, raising the retirement age to 64, is being put on hold until the presidential elections. And a cynic would say that, in effect, is killing it off. Because if it's been put off to the presidential elections, who's going to campaign on bringing it back? No one. It's a very, very big move, this, and the money markets will be looking on with a great deal of scepticism about what all this means. But it might mean, nonetheless, that France has managed to get through this crisis, because if it is enough to persuade the socialists not to join in with the far right and the far left and vote against the government, then the government might survive.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,460 naira. Botswana, the dollar is 13 pula 28. Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling and 28. Zambia, 22 kwacha 63. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 47. In Russia, 79 rubles 98. India, 88 rupees 76. China, 71.12. South Africa, 17 rand 38 cents. $1 is 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is at $4,215, platinum at $1,668 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $62.48 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Chanduko Ligege with our business news. It is 12:45 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. We are at the 14th Oppenheimer Research Conference, which is underway, and we're coming to you live from there today. A hive of activity, the discussions that are taking place, the plenaries. It's quite an interesting one, and at the moment we are waiting for the Minister of Zambia, Honorable Minister Evelyn Ndlovu, who is the Minister of Environment, Climate and Wildlife of Zimbabwe, and she will be joining us in a little bit, and we will unpack exactly what it means for Zimbabwe to be here, and in terms of what they are focusing on, and the topics of discussion that she has brought to the table. But in the meantime, continue with us on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Now, Zambia has begun mass registration of voters ahead of its 2026 August general election. Now, the mass registration of voters is set to capture close to 4 million eligible persons as a 23 million populated state heads for the general polls next August. Our Zambia correspondent Arthur Davis Sekopo gives us an understanding of the process of elections in Zambia from Lusaka.
Indeed, elections do not begin on a poll day. They begin with registration.
That is Electoral Commission of Zambia Chairperson Mangala Zalomis, State Council, affirming that the crucial vote of 2026 in Zambia has set its wheels in motion. Zambia has begun mass registration of voters, which will run for a period of 3 weeks. And it is through this exercise that 3.5 million persons are expected to be captured, in addition to the over 7 million registered in 2020 for the 2021 general election. And the key or eligible targets are persons that are over 18 years of age or would have turned 18 on or before 30th April 2026. This exercise is crucial for the country that has a 5-year election cycle, as it also spells out population growth and determines social and economic dynamics in a 23 million populated state. Electoral Body Chairperson Zalomis says this exercise forms part of a well-planned and transparent 2026 general election roadmap, as she further underscores the importance of the process.
This is how we weave democracy together, one citizen at a time, one registration at a time.
Stakeholders weigh in this matter, but with notes of fair coverage. Richo Omulwani of the Anti-Voter Apathy Project gives his organization's perspective.
It's a great milestone for the people of Zambia that they should be able to register as voters, especially the young people. As AVAP, we want to encourage all those that are eligible to ensure that they are able to register as voters and vote in the 2026 elections.
Political parties acknowledge that this is a duty requirement and is calling for all eligible voters to register in numbers. Rafona Kachinda is Secretary General of the immediate past ruling party, the Patriotic Front.
First of all, the period is too short. When you look at the civic education and sensitization around this process of registration, information has been very scanty. But we are trying our best as Patriotic Front to encourage our members, supporters, and generally communities across the country to register.
However, Mr. Nakachinda raises these concerns of alleged defranchising the opposition.
The registration of our people in terms of them getting their IDs, national registration cards, which is a prerequisite to you registering for voters. You know, the northern part and eastern part of the country, half of the country was more or less defranchised by way of supplying less materials to have that actualized.
Though the official election campaign period is 90 days before the poll date, the mood in the country from all political parties, especially their aspiring candidates, is already heightening up. With no clearer presidential opponent against incumbent Hakainde Hichilema, who got into power in 2021 after beating Edgar Lungu, now deceased.
And that report by our correspondent in Zambia, Arthur Davis Sekopo. It is 12:51 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. We are live at the 14th Oppenheimer Research Conference, a leading platform for natural and environmental science, convened by the Oppenheimer Generations Research and Conservation. It brings together top scientists, policymakers, and conservationists looking to advance solutions to global environmental crisis in an ever-changing world. Our Channel Africa is on the ground and will be interviewing some of the leading African voices, shaping meaningful approaches to some of Africa's most pressing challenges. And do stay tuned. And speaking of one of those individuals who are honourable and will give us an update as to exactly why the Honourable Minister Evelyn Ndlovu, the Minister of Environment, Climate and Wildlife of Zimbabwe, is attending this Oppenheimer Research Conference, which is currently underway here in South Africa in Midrand. And she's joining us live in studio here at the conference. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister, and thank you for joining us.
A very good afternoon to you, ma'am.
Now, earlier this year, you hosted the 15th COP on wetlands at Victoria Falls. What do you see as the key achievements and outcomes arising from that conference? And why is wetland conservation so important for tackling climate change?
I must say that I'm a very proud woman who managed to convince the world to come to the Victoria Falls by marketing the COP15 conference, working with the Secretariat, of course, and my office. We managed to convince almost 174 countries to attend. And the 172 were members, whilst 2 countries were observers. At the end of the conference, one of the 2 observers joined the group.
Okay.
So that's a great achievement, that we managed to convince that particular country to join us. And wetlands are life. The wetlands conserve water. Wetlands look after biodiversity. Various microscopic items or lives live within that particular wetlands, and they assist us to conserve water in cities, in conservation areas where our wildlife depend on that water. As Zimbabwe, we were convincing the international community that we have done it. We have managed to keep the Victoria Falls, together with Zambia, alive.
Now, you spoke, Minister, earlier today on your keynote address about how Zimbabwe is empowering women and youth in taking up ownership of conservation through wildlife-based economies and community conservancies. Are you able to just elaborate a bit further on what policies you're enacting for this?
We have various policies, inclusive of the biodiversity policy and action plan, which assist us to manage our activities in partnership with the rural communities where these and urban communities where these wetlands exist. The capacity building exercises that our institutions do is making people take responsibility. They have taken over the recovery of the wetlands. They've also taken over the protection of wetlands. These are women in rural communities, and these are women in towns. And those in towns, they make sure that there's no pollution. Plastic, they collect those plastics to make sure that they sell to recycling companies so that the town is clean. The Victoria Falls is a pride of Zimbabwe. It is one of the cleanest cities that we have, and that's where we have the biggest wetland. In rural areas, we have worked with the youth and the women to come up with sustainable projects that bring nutrition to the family by developing green gardens. We also have these gardens within that particular setup. They also feed their animals that are weak during the drought season, and they drink the water from there. The women come to do their washing of the laundry, whilst they look after their animals.
Now, let's talk about landlocked countries and how these contribute, how they can contribute meaningfully to achieve marine conservation targets. And why is it so important that landlocked countries play a role in the space?
Not long ago, we were in Paris. And everybody was wondering why Zimbabwe is there and other landlocked countries. And it was a simple answer for us to give to the gathering, that all water comes from wetland, from inland. So inland countries play a critical role to fill the oceans with water. Inland countries have a responsibility. We also demonstrated that. They have a responsibility to make sure that the rivers in inland are clean, so that they don't pollute the oceans, and they don't damage the biodiversity within the oceans. So we inland countries are really supposed to be supported financially to look after their space, which is very critical.
And speaking on finances, you're basically saying that inland countries need to be supported financially. Is this not happening?
Well, we were lucky that when we were in Nice, the French ambassador, the head of state in France managed to pledge 2 billion euros in terms of funding. And this fund is going to help us in the inland countries and the islands to make sure that they rehabilitate their space for clean water that will flow into the ocean. I am looking forward to more big countries to come in and support that fund to make sure that we've got a bigger facility for all countries that have got a challenge in terms of plastics. I'm telling you, I'm so happy that here we're given bottles to make sure that we don't pollute the environment.
Well, Honourable Minister, it's been a pleasure chatting to you, and thank you so much for joining us. But before I let you go, we just heard the news today of the former Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga, having passed away in India. And this is, news that broke earlier today. There has been confirmation from the family, and official confirmation is still being awaited on, as we've been told by our correspondents on the ground. And your message to the people of Kenya and the former Prime Minister, the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
We really, we as Africans, we mourn together. So we mourn with the people of Kenya. We mourn with the family of the former Prime Minister, and we are praying for him. And we will continue to pray for his family, for the body to be repatriated from India to Kenya. May his soul rest in peace.
And that's the Honourable Minister Evelyn Ndlovu, Minister of Environment, Climate and Wildlife of Zimbabwe, joining us live here at the 14th Oppenheimer Research Conference, which is underway in Midrand, Johannesburg. And that's how we wrap the first day of the show. Before we wrap up, Tracy's waving her hand. The Upside team is in studio. Okay, they're not in studio. All right. It is the first day, and it's a very interesting one. Even the minister is laughing here. But it's been a great day here at the 14th Oppenheimer Research Conference, which is underway for the next 3 days. We are back here for day 2. And thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. Continue with us on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. And we are going to leave it there for today. It's been a great one. Have a good one, and let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
morning. Odinga is reported to have suffered cardiac arrest and was rushed to hospital, where he was pronounced dead in the southern Indian city of Kochi. Tributes are pouring in for the former statesman. Alex Chiari reports.
With the reports that the former Prime Minister has passed away, we are actually waiting for the undergone some brain surgery, and he was recovering or recuperating over there. And that's when this happened, 4 a.m. rather, local time, that's Kenyan time.
India has confirmed that the former